Hey guys, we're going to be looking at the Art Tube MP, which is a microphone tube preamp, but we're going to be running it into a bass guitar. When you're using a microphone, you usually don't have a vocal amplifier like you would for a bass guitar or a guitar. Usually those instruments have an amp, and an amp is a preamp and a power amp sort of put together. It is a preamp onboard EQ system where it'll take your line level instrument and put it through its onboard circuitry, and then the power amp will then take that and amplify the sound through a speaker cabinet. Now of course the microphone can't really do this unless it has a PA system, and usually when it goes through one of these it has a mixer in front of it, right in between the microphone and the PA system. Or if you're recording, it'll also go through a mixing board, and it'll sometimes usually go through a preamp, a vocal preamp. Nowadays we have interfaces, and on an interface you usually have a built-in preamp. So that's just microphones. What about other instruments? Usually when you're going live, you have these amplifiers for bass guitar and guitar, but when you're running into a mixing board, it doesn't really work that well. If you're just going straight into a mixing board or an interface, you're probably going to get a very thin tone because it's just going to pick up the bare natural sound of the wood. The interface is not an amplifier of sorts. It's just going to take the signal of the instrument and put it out into studio monitors like this or headphones, and that's about it. So there's two options. You can either mic a guitar or bass amplifier, or you can use a preamp. Bass guitars will run through direct boxes sometimes, or they will go through a dedicated preamp like an Avalon. Guitars will go through something like an Axe-Fx, will go through something like the Avid 11 rack. And microphones generally go through preamps like this, which have tubes inside of them for a warmer tone. And a lot of those other preamplifiers that I just talked about also do have tubes inside of them for this generally desirable warm sound.
It's made out of metal, which is fantastic for its price, and though it's not meant to be on a pedal board, both because the input and outputs are along the top and there's no foot switch, it's shaped like a direct box and it's small enough to fit along a pedal board, so I put one on mine sometimes. Inside the box it comes with an AC power adapter, and they insist that you use the one that it came with, and if you need to replace it, make sure that it's a 9-volt AC adapter and not a DC adapter. It also comes with some pre-cut rubber inside the user manual to stick along the bottom of the preamp for desktop placement. At the heart of the unit is a 12AX7 tube, which provides the warmth, and the tube is interchangeable. You can replace it if it goes out after months of use, or you can use different brand tubes for subtle tonal differences if you're into that kind of thing. Along the top are knobs and controls for the preamp. Input volume for your mic or instrument is on the left. There's a positive 20 dB gain switch for line level microphones and instruments which are really quiet. Some acoustic guitars would probably benefit from this. There's a 48 volt phantom power for condenser microphones, which will sometimes require it. Next to that is a phase reverse switch for when you're using multiple microphones and you get something where one microphone is a little bit farther away than another microphone and the sound is a bit delayed. You can remedy the situation by switching that on. The preamp also has a built-in limiter, which is a nice addition. The limiter keeps the dynamic peaks of the input volume steady. And finally on the right is the overall output volume of the pedal. There's an LED which indicates if you're clipping when it turns red and stays green otherwise. The VU meter is a nice touch and gives you an analog visual of the volume of the preamp. It fits with the vintage tube style of the unit. The preamp does have XLR and 1/4-inch input and output options. Though you can't use two instruments or two microphones inside the unit at the same time, you are able to mix and match XLR and 1/4-inch input. So if you've got a 1/4-inch and you've got only another XLR available like I do, then you can run in with a 1/4-inch and out with an XLR, or vice versa. If you've got a microphone with an XLR input and you need to go out with a 1/4-inch into your interface, then you are able to do that, along with using both XLRs and the 1/4-inch inputs and outputs together. So when I'm running my bass guitar into a DAW like Logic Pro here, I've generally got a very thin kind of bass tone. See, right now I'm just going straight into my interface, and I kind of just got like a I mean, I can hear a lot more of my bass that on my lap than I can on the actual recording. It's natural, and what I would generally do from here is I would go into Audio FX and I would design a bass amp. You know, I would actually have to process something inside here. Let's see. From here, let's listen to it now. See, it sounds a lot more like a bass guitar now, and from here I can play around with the effects and I can get a higher gain and things like that. But generally, this I'd like to leave as flat as possible. I like to keep the settings that are on here the way that they are, and if I can get away with it, I might maybe boost the EQ a little bit. But what I generally want to do is I want to get the fundamental bass tone. I want that to be as round and thick and fat as possible, so that I have to do very minimal tone work after the fact, very, very minimal inside of the DAW. So now I've got the Art preamp in between the bass guitar and the interface, and it's making a lot more of a difference. So you've got I'm also getting a little bit more of a natural overdrive that I can tone down if I want to. I can actually take advantage of the overdrive. I can use the tube overdrive that I get and sort of get a little bit more of a. Or I can kind of round it out a little bit, you know. The tone of the bass going into the interface is a lot more shaped, is a lot more defined, and so that now if I do go and add a bass amp, see a lot more, I'm getting a lot more of a defined bass tone. I can kind of raise that up a little bit. Even higher up on the neck if I'm kind of, you know. Now generally when I'm running into my pedal board, I've got this pedal running right into the place of where the preamp is, and I use this as my preamp. So I use this as my onboard EQ system, and then I use my amplifier as a power amp of sorts, where I blend using most of what this pedal can offer versus what my amplifier offers. Now this has tube emulation, and it does it a lot better, of course, because this does have a lot more features, and this is made for bass, and you know this doesn't have a tube inside of it, so it's ready to go as soon as you plug in. This does cost over $200, at least it was when I bought it, so it's about $200 for the Sans amp, where it's about $40 for something like this. I could get by with the actual tube that's inside here to provide the general tone of the preamp, which is what this pedal is doing. The SansAmp is providing the tube warmth of an Ampeg SVT amp, and of course this is just a preamp tube, so it's not going to provide the same emulation warmth that this is going to provide, but it is a real tube, so it's going to be warm enough for it to actually give me a fat bass tone.
Overall, for the price, it is a fantastic unit. I can say that with the features and the way that it's built, I would definitely spend the $40 that this thing is valued at. You'll probably notice that the sound changes were a lot more subtle than you'd imagine. And that's, of course, because you kind of have to be there to feel the tube warmth. It absolutely is there. If you want any more proof, check out my latest cover by The Killers. It's Mr. Brightside, where I actually used this as my main direct box from my bass guitar into the computer. The only changes that I would make to it is the input is on this side and the output is on this side. So when I have it on a pedal board, when I'm using this kind of as a direct box, I have to cross the wires over from the conventional way a daisy chain is going to go. So it'd actually be really nice if these were off to the side, or if I could actually have these switched. I no longer have to bring home my SansAmp when I want to do a cover, if I want to write something or record directly into my mini studio. I just have this as my direct box, and it gives me a nice warm sound and enough control over what I can do in between the instrument and the computer for me to get by. So that was this unit with a bass guitar. I will be testing it separately with microphones, which it is meant for, where you'll see a lot more of a difference in the sound. If you guys have any more questions or requests with this particular unit, absolutely ask me down below. Remember to follow, subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff, and I will catch you guys in the next video.